Hello everybody, my name is Jeff Rolka. I want to welcome you to this week's live event. Hello Daniel. We're just getting started here and the chat is obviously open, so please be not shy if you have a question. I think it's reasonable to think that someone else out there may be thinking or wondering the very same thing. And as a couple weeks ago I mentioned not having any questions to take from those that were emailed in, and that problem has been quickly rectified. I have lots of things, so while I'm waiting for the chat to populate, I'm going to tackle a few questions that have come in recently. Good afternoon to you, JC's Radiant Ray. Hello, Altug. Question came in regarding quick breaths, and actually, Altug, you had a link for, oh, by the way, let me know if the picture is okay, if there's anything unusual. I'm on a different internet connection today, so, you know, fingers crossed and all that, but Altug had a really good recommendation, that method book, which I downloaded and subsequently could not find. The question was regarding quick breaths that were silent, and that is a tenet of the Passaggio breath management system. Capone, good night, everyone. Yeah, so it's a different decorations, different location. Yeah. Anyways, okay, good. Thank you, Altug. And that method book that you recommended, which was it the Fresnel method? I think I'm confusing the vocal instructor with Frederick Fresnel, who is he was the conductor of the Eastman Wind Ensemble for a number of years, and whom I actually had the opportunity to play under briefly a long time ago. Longest baton you've ever seen in your life. Wave that thing around. Anyways, in order to have really fast, really silent breaths, one of the things to do is to make absolutely certain that you've got adequate expansion of the rib cage and that you're maintaining that engagement in the rectus abdominis muscles and in the back muscles, and maintaining that expansion. If you allow it to sag, then you're going to end up gasping for breath, and you've got a lot more, meat and viscera and bones to expand, and you're likely going to be taking a longer, slower breath. If you maintain that expansion, the breaths come incredibly quickly. And that's kind of the short answer to that. The dynamic air pressure exercises that you'll find on the channel, where there's a short note and a short breath, those are really, that's one of the things that they do really well, is help to increase the efficiency of the inhalation. I know it's just a short breath, but when you have really close phrases and you're taking, you might have a phrase of a couple bars and there's a small break, it's not very long, and then another phrase of a few bars and another tiny break, oftentimes it's more efficient and better to take those short little sips of air frequently, rather than trying to string together half a dozen of these really long phrases. Danielle, I'm doing quite well, but as you may hear, I've got a cold again, and it seems this one took root a couple days ago, and has been not brutal, but not awesome either. Tadeus, hello. Jeremiah Holloway is asking for tips on 5-part harmonies. You really want to write that stuff out, simply because the possibility for doublings, voice crossings, and harmonies that are irrelevant it's just through the roof. But what I would actually suggest, and it depends in part on what you're writing for, but if you want incredibly smooth sounding, lush harmonies, I would investigate, and this is going to sound a little bit strange, but I would investigate how they harmonize trumpet sections for big bands, because what you had typically were 5 trumpets, and they would harmonize them all so that you would just get these beautiful, beautiful textures. And look at the voice leading for that, and then adapt it for your purposes. Typically, what you had there, which you had the lead trumpet playing the melody. The second trumpet would be playing a harmony, either a third above or a sixth above or something like that. Your third trumpet player would be playing the melody an octave below the lead trumpet. And then the fourth and fifth players would be doing different harmony parts as well. So that's one way to think about it. Great, Altug. Jellycat, I don't recall seeing your user ID before. Welcome, welcome. JC's Radiant Ray says the picture is great. That's awesome. Striker, hello, Striker. Imperator86, hey Jeff, I've been watching your vids for about a year now and I've learned so much. Just want to say thanks for all the uploads. You're welcome. Thank you very, very much. Thanks for watching. I'm really, really glad they're helping. That's awesome. That's what they're there to do. Giuseppe, hello to you as well. Love the video warm-up, says Jellycat14. Thank you very much. I really, really appreciate that. If you haven't heard this before, since you're a new user ID, little word to the wise, they're actually, they are technical exercises. They are designed to address certain aspects of how you sing, how you phonate. If you really listen carefully, you'll notice how they might hover around a specific, if it doesn't say it in the title, they'll hover around a specific concept or a linkage of two different vowel syllables. And you can really, really fine-tune how you practice your voice and get specific about how you adapt your practice to your singing, to your song singing, your song work, by noticing what needs work in the songs and then taking note of how the videos approach that. You know, totally shameless plug, the guidebook helps with that too. I wrote a guidebook for the channel this year. Actually, it took me about a year to write it. Excuse me. But in the guidebook, I talk a lot about how each video will address those certain topics. Tadeus, why do I lose flexibility when I try to sing louder, even when engaging support? You're almost certainly inadvertently flexing the muscles around the larynx, and that habit can take a while to unwind from, to learn around. So be patient. Keep your focus on what I think of as the action items, and it sounds like you're doing that, but stay focused on your engagement. Stay focused on the support. When that becomes incredibly reliable, when you don't feel as if, when you feel as if you would do that subconsciously, then cast your attention to any sensations that you're feeling above your shoulders, above your clavicle. And if you notice anything, try to release that. You might, wiggle your tongue a little bit or be a little loose around the shoulders and around the head. That can help make you aware of muscles that you are engaging without being aware of it. And you can work towards undoing that. Yeah, that's right. Thank you. I was stuck in Altug. Farinelli, that method, which was free in the Library of Congress archives, if I remember correctly. I knew it wasn't Fresnel, but I couldn't stop thinking of Frederick Fresnel. Since we're talking about Frederick Fresnel, anyways, another anecdote about him. He was a very diminutive persona. In other words, he was very short. And conductors typically stand on a podium, they vary in height, but usually they're about 18 inches to 24 inches. And for him, he would insist that they stacked two of them so that he could stand tall enough over the wind ensemble. Jellycat14, I'm comfortable with the alto, mezzo, and soprano warm-ups. How can I find my true voice part? Excellent question. Thank you for asking. Finding one's Foch is Foch, F-A-C-H. That was derived out of the German School of Voice many years ago, and it's a voice classification system, which was it's used and adapted for different schools of voice. When I refer to it, I'm talking about Richard Miller's usage of the word Foch, which may be different from your own experience. It's all on Wikipedia, or you can take a look at training tenor voices or training soprano voices to get the delineations of things. In any case, locating your primo, secondo passaggios will go a long way towards helping you understand what your fosh is. Range or fosh designation is not a function of just ultimate pitch. So my lowest note is this, my highest note is that, ergo I am... No, it doesn't really work that way. Those transition points inform us quite a lot about what our fosh is. They are not necessarily a limiting factor, at least they don't have to be. In other words, just because you're a baritone doesn't mean that you cannot sing as high as a tenor. It just requires different affectations to a certain extent. And the point that you transition from your thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice, your chest voice, to your cricothyroid dominant singing voice, or your head voice, is in a different location than a tenor's would be. Jellycat 14, I feel like I can sing all parts. I can even sing the tenor warm-ups. There is a lot of overlap in these ranges, and particularly if you're comfortable with the alto parts, and you haven't mentioned whether you're male or female, but certainly a tenor range vocalist would comfortably sing most of the alto videos and quite a few of the mezzo videos as well. The sopranos might extend beyond their usable range, but might not. Carlos Estrada, singing Allottees, crucifixes, any tips? I would have to, pardon me, I would want to take a look at the music before weighing in on it specifically. And perhaps if I make a note of that, I can have a listen and talk about it next week. I don't know if that works with your performance schedule, but I'm happy to do so. I do have to make a note of it, though. Make sure I spell all that correctly. What is laryngeal tilt? How do we practice it? And how do we know it's happening? And I hate winter colds. I could not agree more with you. There's nothing that I dread more. I never used to get colds that frequently. England was challenging in that regard for me. Okay, so every once in a while someone asks about laryngeal tilt, and it's been a while since that's come up. I did look into it last time, and if I remember correctly, that is my caveat. Laryngeal tilt is principally talking about the hyoid bone and how it rotates forward in order to help access the upper register of one's voice, specifically the transition through the secondo passaggio from thyroarytenoid dominant singing, chest voice, to cricothyroid dominant singing, head voice. And what that is the engagement of the anterior and posterior cricothyroid muscles, and that's what rotates the hyoid bone forward. And when that occurs, then the vocal fold becomes elongated, and that is what gets us into our upper registers really smoothly. It's like a rubber band. I mean, to make a gross simplification of it. Pardon me. I got all kinds of issues today. I'm like burping and coughing. I'm gonna need to blow my nose at some point. If you think about a rubber band and you've pinched it, it's kind of a nice analogy, because you've got your posterior cricothyroid muscles and your anterior cricothyroid muscles, and when you're in your chest voice, they're active, but they're not that active. They're kind of hanging out, sort of doing whatever, right? And as you move into the zona de passaggio, that activity increases and increases, and as you cross the secondo passaggio, now they're really increased quite a lot, and you'll notice now they've separated, and so they've rotated forward, rotated apart, that a ways, and the hyoid bone is rocked forward, and you get that nice upper register access. How not to run out of breath quickly. If you're taking a full breath and you're maintaining engagement sufficiently, which is hard for me to say without hearing you, quite frankly, but I would address the efficiency of your phonation and your vowels, specifically the tonal onset. In my private instruction, I focus a lot on the moment of inception, the moment that we begin singing, because so much occurs at that moment. And many of those things will either guarantee our success in the phrase or our failure. If there's a long hissing or a lot of kind of stuff that happens before you hear the vowel, he, e, or a glottal attack like that, those things are inefficiencies in how you are beginning to sing, beginning to phonate. And you lose air. If you have a multitude of short phrases with a bunch of those small attacks, it can be very confusing because you think, wow, I've taken this huge breath and I've just got these short phrases, but I'm running out of air. But the beginnings of those words will lose us a lot of air. So you have to really, really look at the tonal onset and then look at how you're phonating the individual vowel syllables. How efficient is the vocal fold? Is it well balanced? Are you pushing too hard, or is there an airiness to your voice? If there's an airiness to your voice, you're leaking air. So it is inherently inefficient, and your phrase lengths will be compromised. Thank you, Danielle. I appreciate that, and I hope I will. Prater86 says, who is my favorite singer of all time? Whew. You know, it's so difficult. It's like my favorite singer of all time is the person I'm listening to right now. Yeah. I mean, there are a few singers I keep on coming back to. I'm always astounded by the beauty of Jeff Buckley. In doing a bit of research on a song, I was listening, it was Ave Maria, and I found a video on YouTube which purported to be Maria Callas, and I don't know, I mean, there's a little bit of controversy apparently over that recording, and I have heard a few stories about that, and I want to do a bit more investigation of it, but whoever's singing on that link that I shared was astounding. Like, it was just utterly beautiful. And I loved that quite a lot. But favorite of all time? Hard to say. I'm sorry I can't be more specific on that. But honestly, usually my favorite singer of all time is the person I'm listening to that week. And I also listen to a lot of instrumental music without vocals. The purity of instrumental music to me is something that I feel like I'm always striving, you know, as an instrumentalist, I'm always trying to be a vocalist, and as a vocalist, I'm always trying to be an instrumentalist. I'm trying to find this artistic expression that meets somewhere in the middle. But like I listened to a lot of Gabriel Fauré and Ravel, the Romantic composers. I've been listening to so much of that, and I love Satie. Not that answers your question at all, because it's completely off topic. For the Love of R&B, hi Jeff, on the tenor warm-up released yesterday, which was me messing up time changes, but you got it a day early, so that's fine. As I got higher and higher, my voice became shaky and strained. Don't strain, stop. How can I stop this, and does this mean I am singing in the wrong range? Not necessarily. It means that you're using your voice with an imbalance in it. As you get higher and higher, there needs to be a requisite increase in airflow in order for your voice to not become overbalanced, either with vocal fold engagement or, in some cases, disengagement and airiness and shakiness. My advice to you is to use those videos in the range below the zona di passaggio while you use the videos that are specific to registration events. So the how to sing high notes videos. You know, if you search the channel for those, you'll find them. and work on that technique, and then work towards integrating the two techniques. I would not recommend doing the videos that were released this past week in your upper register unless you were incredibly secure in how you phonate above the secondo passaggio. And even then, it would be best to be monitored by a third party to make sure that you're using your voice efficiently. Altug, why is it hard to sing chromatic passages, especially ascending ones? Will practicing staccato help with this? The staccato practice will help in terms of your ear training and very clearly delineating the pitches as they ascend chromatically. It's interesting, when you work with singers, they're very typically most intimidated by the wide skips, and yet the most difficult ones to sing from an intonation perspective and from a vocal fold engagement perspective are the chromatic passages. So the staccato passages, and particularly if you can insert a breath in between them, will help you get the proper balance of the vocal fold. In other words, the right amount of engagement at the vocal fold and the right amount of airflow, so that you're singing those pitches efficiently. And then just keep on going from there, honestly. That's really just it. Start with that and then begin to make the transition to melismatic singing. Typically, I would assume you're going flat as you ascend. In other words, compacting the interval. Oftentimes, as you descend, you will expand the interval. So you'll end up, in either cases, you're going to go flat. So as you ascend, you're going to go not quite high enough, and as you descend, you're going to overshoot the interval and go lower and lower and lower. So knowing that, let that guide your practice. Striker Kane has retracted that. Altug, when I shift from the E vowel to the A vowel, if it sounds resonant, it feels like my mouth cavity is enlarging. Is that the soft palate rising? Could be. That's entirely possible. It's also possible that your tongue is lowering. Well, it will lower slightly. Alternate, and as well, A allows for a little bit more airflow. So as you open up the oral cavity, you're going to get more air flowing through it. You're going to feel that space a little bit more. Unique Thomas Belmont, extremely bad at harmonizing. Please help me. There are several videos. Can you be more specific? What's happening? There are quite a few videos. Not quite a few. I would love to do more harmony videos, and I perhaps ought to. But there are several on the channel already. But tell me a bit more. What's going on? And I see I've got to move more quickly here. Jellycat, thanks. I am new. Welcome. Bruno, hey, I haven't seen you. First time I'm able to. I thought I'd seen you before, but apparently not. Well, welcome to the office hours. I'm glad you could finally make it. You're very welcome for the lessons, and thanks for watching. Thanks for chiming in today. I need a little bit of water here. Giuseppe, can you explain vowel modification after the second passaggio and in belting? Thank you very much. A voice teacher of mine once said there are no pure vowels above the secondo passaggio. And that is, I believe, to be true. The caveats with this are that if you take vowel modification as a gradual process beginning around the primo passaggio, then you will not, and your listeners will not really notice that the transition is occurring. So, and that's where some schools of thought on vowel modification will say it's not to be done. Like there's no such thing, and it's cheating, and blah 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 blah. Well, okay, like if you're going to facilitate greater airflow through a pipe that's the same size, then the pressure is going to increase. Right? If I increase I'm not a physicist nor an engineer, so forgive me if I'm totally off basis here. But when we widen our vowels, we're well, when we modify the vowels, we're widening them. In other words, we're moving them from a vowel that is narrower or tighter in vocal fold engagement to one that is looser. So we're going from an E towards an the schwa vowel. Everything gravitates towards the schwa vowel. And what that does is that relieves some of that pressure, that relieves a little bit of the engagement of the vocal fold from the flow of air. So that is at least how I understand the concept to be. And without doing that, we end up fighting ourselves in order to increase the flow of air over the vocal fold. If we can't increase the flow of air, then the tension increases. And we're going higher and higher. So as tension increases, we're going higher, we're straining, and we're probably going to end up being flat in intonation because the vocal fold doesn't want to vibrate that fast, and it prevents us from making that elongation of the cricothyroid muscles in order to access the upper register. So it becomes this self-defeating cycle of things if we don't widen as we ascend. With belting, and there are different definitions of belting that you will find on YouTube and on the internet. My definition of belting is that you limit phonation to the thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice. In other words, when you arrive at the secondo passaggio, or when you arrive in the zona di passaggio, and you would begin the process of allowing the cricothyroid dominant singing voice to begin to exert some influence on the vocal fold, you prevent that from happening. You redouble your efforts on the thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice, your chest voice, and force those tissues to vibrate faster and faster and faster. You can still modify the vowels, but if you modify them too much in order to facilitate airflow, it's quite likely you're going to crack and end up with a falsetto tone production because you've held tension for such a long time that when that finally gets released, it tends to slip right off the vocal fold. Tends to. Some people will do something different, but in general, the tendency is to find your falsetto singing voice there, that airy, light tone, which is not the head voice. Alto. In some songs, even if you transpose it, most pitches lie in the passaggio zone of passaggio. What is a good strategy for practicing those songs? Keep transposing, or sing it down at a comfortable octave in order to learn it. Because at some point, and then just don't sing the low sections. Like if the problem is that, okay, this song has a 2-octave range, and the verses are primarily in a comfortable range, but the choruses are all entirely above or in the zona di passaggio. Well, take those sections, transpose them to a comfortable range, forget the verse for the time being, and practice those sections. If you don't want to do that, or you're working towards integration, so let's say you've done all that and you've worked through your vowels, and now you want to integrate the two sections. So now we've gone back, and we can't put the top section in a comfortable range because the low section becomes unsingable. Then we get things as comfortable as we can, and then basically start the process over. Go back to your lip trills, go back to your solid vowel sounds, and work towards integrating those transitions and the endurance necessary in order to stay released in that zona di passaggio and upper register part of your voice. That's like the short answer. The application of that can take some time, but usually the first couple songs are the ones that take the longest, and you may not even finish them. After that, it goes much more quickly, and you will find that it gets a lot easier, and the sound of your voice is much more efficacious above the secondo passaggio for that practice. I forgot to do my station identification at the beginning of this thing. I'll do it now. My name is Jeff. If you're new here, thank you. Please, the chat is obviously open, so dive right in. I know I'm running a little bit behind, and I'm going to try to catch up. But if you've subscribed, thank you. If you haven't yet, I hope you will consider doing so. Yeah, that's about it. Jacob Vesquez, when I sing a high note after I come back to it again, I can't really sing it as strong, or I can't reach it anymore. The shape of your vowels in the oral cavity is changing and or collapsing. This is very typical when you sing a high note and then descend. So the practice for this is to do your phrases be very, very focused on what it feels like and the physical experiences, the airflow, the engagement of those high pitches. Be very certain to make a diminuendo, get softer as you descend, get softer, get narrower with the vowels as you descend. This makes it easier to reascend because you are not exerting so much force. If you're maintaining the same volume as you descend, there's very little chance that you're going to reascend and have the same kind of phonation. Over time, the amount that you will have to change volume may differ somewhat. You won't have to make as dramatic a change, but in the beginning stages, be dramatic with it. Be very aggressive in how much you make a diminuendo, keeping in mind that you must maintain proper phonation. It's not to get airy, it's not to get squeezy or none of that sort of thing. It needs to be a well-produced vocal timbre when you arrive at the bottom, but that should make it a lot easier to reascend. Also, I feel difficulty at my first passaggio. What may be the cause? Vowels don't ring and sound muffled. It's an interesting question. The Prima Passaggio, I jokingly say that that's the point at which our vocal technique begins to make a difference. That's kind of a silly thing to say, but whatever. My suspicion is you're not quite providing enough engagement soon enough. And C sharp or D4 is quite high. So whatever amount of increase in airflow you're doing in the Prima Passaggio, start around C4 instead of C sharp or D4. Start there and see if that makes a difference. Yeah. Carlos Estrada, how do you sing hallelujah without punching the Y in ya? Well, ultimately, it's control the musculature of the tongue. I would say start by practicing that word spoken without using it at all. So can you sing, hallelujah, right, without the Y at all? Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Gradually work the Y back into your phonation and then move it back to the song and try it there. Kevin Palacio, how can I know if I sing well? Record yourself and listen back is a good way to do it. See how it compares to the people that you listen to on YouTube or on the radio or whatever. If there are obvious, different problems, if you hear intonation difficulties, well, that can be a good, thing to direct your future practice. If you cannot tell whether or not there are problems, then have a friend listen to it who, knows music. If they can't tell, then maybe consider getting a lesson. That would be a good start. But good is good. How we sing well is very, very subjective, as defined by your priorities, what that means to you. What good is for you may be completely contrary to what good is for someone else. So defining your priorities would be good as well. Kevin Palacios says +1. Oh, meet Hans giving you a +1. That's very good. Danielle, Jeff, can you tell me what's the good placement or right way for rock singing? Thank you. It needs a little bit more forward placement. Maybe not quite as far as a musical theater person would place the resonances of their vowels, but not far off actually either. It really helps with projection, whether you're using a microphone or not. And it'll make sure that you're heard quite nicely through the context of the music. Makes you stand out in the mix a lot better if you're recording. So all those NG exercises, you want to make those your friend. There's a couple of them on the channel at the very least, and they work their way into into a lot of the warm-ups, the general warm-up videos as well. Navid Nahid Music. What would you say is the best vocal warm-up for baritone singers? The one that serves the song that you are singing. That is the best warm-up for you at that time. So whatever the range and the characteristics of the song, find your warm-up to match that song. That's part of the reason why I can keep on doing, like, I think it was Monsieur Maubet, some weeks or a month or two ago, was kind of like talking about, like, I get nervous about how are you going to keep on releasing warm-ups? Yeah, there's a virtually infinite number of warm-ups I can do, because every song, requires something a little. I mean, there's going to always be overlap, right? But in theory, every song could have its own unique warm-up specific to the requirements of that piece of music. Mitan, when I take note from piano, I give it perfect. But when I take it from guitar, I give a little bit off, 5 to 10 cents off. What's my problem? It depends on how accustomed you are to listening to guitars, because how we perceive pitch, even though it should be the same, right? Like A440 off of a guitar is A440 off of a piano. But most of us sing primarily in the middle 6 octaves of the piano, and those strings are triple. Now, the important part of that is that means that the overtone series is represented in triplicate off of each time you play a string. So when I play C4, there are 3 strings that are vibrating with that. That gives the human ear a much richer representation of the overtone series, and that is what clues us into how well we are in tune, and also if we are perceived of as being in tune. So when our voices lack overtones, we are perceived of as being out of tune. Guitars, of course, typically have only 1 string, or at most 2, that are vibrating with a given pitch. Thinking of a 12-string guitar here. So it may be that you're just not entirely accustomed to hearing that and then placing the pitch correctly. Chellycat 14, you're female. That's cool, and that lets me know too a bit more about how I might determine your fosh, or how I might direct you in terms of thinking about fosh. Bhavya, pardon me. I have difficulty in phrasing. I do open my mouth, I do sing vowels correctly sometimes, but when I record, it sounds like I am talking instead of singing. Focus on your vowels. Connect the vowels in your songs. So make the vowels like the touchdown points. The consonants are just articulators. They help us to understand what the word is that you're singing. But make the vowels the principal focus of how you connect the melody. Take the consonants out and practice your songs that way. I guarantee you, when you go back, and really get it. So take the consonants out and get it so that you can phrase all of those vowels together and get the resonances all matching up, and then put your consonants back in and listen to the difference. I guarantee it will be different. It's a tedious exercise, but it is incredibly, incredibly beneficial. Striker Kane at Kevin, Chellycat14, thanks for asking my question. I will look into fosh, very interesting. I didn't realize voice part is not necessarily determined by the notes you can hit. Well, the notes you hit is part of it, right? So there you go. JC's Radiant Ray, in follow-up to the question from Meet Han, are some instruments easier to hear? Does the timbre of an instrument make a factor? Yes, it does. It's also quite, it becomes what we're accustomed to as well. But case in point, harpists. So harp players, the big old harps, right? If you notice, if you ever play with a harpist, when they need to tune the instrument, they will disappear. They will be gone, because the duration of the pitch is so short that to tune it, they really, really need it to be quiet in order to tune it properly. That being said, they're so beautiful. Gosh, just beautiful, beautiful. If you can ever sit and listen to a harpist play, or play with them in an ensemble, it is just delightful. And then some instruments, I think a certain part of familiarity plays into this as well. So like, if you're not accustomed to playing with dobro, and now all of a sudden you're singing a song with a dobro player, that can be very off-putting. And in other instruments, more frequently I find that instruments are not tuned quite carefully enough for my tastes, and that to me is incredibly off-putting. And furthermore, there's a lot of times people will want to tune their instruments by ear, which I advocate, but do the tuning by ear to a standard tuning source. The reason being is because we exist in a well-tempered environment. Pure intonation is different, and if you try to tune your guitar from a single reference, so like someone gives you an A, and you tune your A string to that A, and you shut it off, and then you tune the rest of the instrument based upon the adjacent strings, the tendency will be to tune the strings in a pure fashion. So there will be a few chords that you will be able to play, which will be absolutely, they'll be of a pure kind of sound. But most other chords will sound out of tune because just intonation accounts for the ability. The just intonation system allows us to play in all keys on an instrument tuned that way. In other words, when you play your piano and it's really well in tune, if you listen to it, it's kind of a little out of tune, but it's a little bit out of tune spread out throughout the entire instrument. So you can play in any key and it will still sound okay. Hence why Bach wrote the well-tempered clavier. Before that, it was harpsichords primarily, and every time you played a song, you had to tune the harpsichord to the key that we would be playing in. And it's quite lovely, but it's obviously very labor intensive. So anyways, tune your guitars by ear, but either take the standard and then cross-reference all the strings in a multiple different ways so that you work out and get closer to a just intonation system, or just take references for each individual string and then tune by ear to what you hear. That, I think, is a very, very beneficial practice. Sorry about that. I got really off topic there. Jeremy G. Hi, Jeff. Just starting to work on getting up to and over the Passaggio. Starting to sound okay, but arbitrarily seems to go breathy, dry, raspy. Okay, so that's not a good transition. If you're getting breathy, you're probably using falsetto tone production, and that's not right. Reverse the process. Start with the exercises that go from the top down, and make sure that it's hollow sounding. If you've got a breathy or raspy sound, that's not the right mode of phonation. I'm sorry to have to say. Just starting out as a tenor, great. Lorena Von Dyke, I have to go, but just saying love your videos and get better. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I don't know if you're still here or not, but thank you for joining us. Karina, hello. JC's Radiant Ray is talking to Karina. Strikers at Carlos. M. Praters, Jeff Buckley likes too. Me too. JC's Radiant Ray is talking to Karina. Strikers talking to Jeff. It was Maria Callas doing that version that I shared. See, now there's like this legend of some famous and this is what I need to check on, some famous vocalist doing a recording, and there was a bar or two that was botched, and like there was another famous vocalist who happened to be at the record company the day that they were mixing the other one, and they're like, hey, can you sing this one bar of the tune? And I wondered if that was that, but I need to look around a bit more. Karina Chen's, thanks for remembering. Striker Kane at Karina. Babu, hello from Nepal. Cheers and good night. I don't know if you're here or not any longer, but good night. I've been practicing for good. Kevin O'Brien, someone tell me your opinion about my voice. I made some cover, but because I don't know if I sing good, I think I sing good. Actually, Kevin, you should get on Sequencer, because people are constantly sharing different stuff. And FYI, guys, I'm sorry I haven't been like as active there as I usually am. I moved over the past couple weeks, and it's just been a little bit. I had to kind of pick my battles. So I wanted to keep videos coming. I wanted to keep on doing these events, and I couldn't monitor sequencer quite as much as I might normally. JC's Radiant Rays talking to Karina. Karina had surgery to remove a cyst. Oh no. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm glad you're recovering. Striker Kane at Jeff, continuing Altug's thought, is there a good practice regime for doing chromatic? I'd like to just wander, walk around doing chromatics humming, but would love to have better practice. One of the practices that I like, but you want to take it in... Sorry, guys. You want to take it in stride, and it requires you to have a piano, is to take an octave and start off by doing the short tones, playing the octave, and then give yourself every other pitch of the chromatic scale. So you do one, sing one without a reference tone, do the next one, so on and so forth, then do every third, every fifth note, so on and so forth, just noting your accuracy. If you're not accurate at a certain stage, so every other note is fine, but every third note isn't, well, practice up to the every third note for a while until you get more accurate, and then carry on from there. That's a very, very good practice because it's part ear training and part phonation is what you're working on with that. And that I found to be very helpful. Striker Kane at Kevin Kristen Bull. It's my birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. If I were feeling better, I would sing happy birthday. But right now, it would sound like a frog eating like a barbed wire fence. That might be what it would feel like to me. So maybe it wouldn't sound like a frog eating a barbed wire fence. Not that I hope that I would hope that never ever occurs. But that's what it would probably sound like and feel like. And you're very welcome for the lessons. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Heidi at Karina, Striker at Kristen, JC's Radiant Ray at Kristen. Those are cool emoticons. Heidi at Kristen, Erkan. Hi Jeff, why do our voices get lower when we get sick, especially colds? What do you think happens to cricothyroid and thyroid muscles when we are sick? And should I stop speaking much when I am cold to recover faster? Wonderful questions. Thank you for asking. Our voices will kind of hang down and be a little bit lower when there's not as much blood engorging the tissues. I don't know if there's necessarily less blood in the tissues when we're sick, but that's typically why our voices are lower in the morning. So if you're not using your voice as much and the tissues aren't getting engorged with blood, then it's possible it will stay looser and more slack, and you'll be a little bit lower. What do I think happens to those muscles? If you're coughing, I think a lot of shock loading happens, which is why it can be so challenging to resume singing in the aftermath of a really nasty cold, and why I try to avoid coughing so much. You might take some speech rest if you have had like a postnasal drip and you can no longer phonate over the secondo passaggio. So it's not necessarily bad to stop. You don't have to stop singing when you're sick. But if there's a significant amount of irritation around the vocal fold, or if you cannot phonate over the secondo passaggio, then that's when you want to really start thinking about vocal rest, and when it may be appropriate to have to stop speaking a little bit too, or limit your singing or speaking, and that will give you some really good rest. Karina is saying thank you and expressing gratitude for all the support, and that is wonderful. I want to say too, I just want to throw this out there, you guys are an incredibly supportive group, and I really appreciate it as well. Not just for me, which I very much appreciate, but within yourselves as well. I think that is incredibly admirable, and it's the kind of environment and group that I really believe in and want to cultivate. So thank you for making this a reality. Altug, yes, widening the vowel in the zona passaggio is different from spreading the vowels. Yes. Yes. If you're spreading the vowel, you've gone too far. And if you're in your thyroarytenoid dominant range, in an area where vowel modification would not normally be necessary, but you are modifying the vowel, we might often refer to that as spreading the vowels. Well done. Giuseppe, thanks, Jeff, very helpful. You're welcome. My pleasure. Bruno, I have a chronic sinusitis. I'm sorry. Thanks to allergies, so my voice always sounds nasal, even when I sing. Is there a way I can get rid of this? I'm a tenor. Okay. I'm not sure why your voice would always be nasal, but nasality is largely a function of how you direct airflow towards the sinuses or the nasal pharynx. So I know I talk about this NG exercise a lot, but it's incredibly helpful in finding out awareness around how that airflow impacts phonation. So practice with the NG and try to do the opposite of what I often mention in the videos. In the videos, I talk about going forward. So try to come back. Not sure how well that reads through microphones and things like that. But think about directing the air back towards the crown of the head, and you will notice the sound will dull somewhat. You can't go all the way back. You can, but it will sound what's called D-nasal. And it's not a terribly satisfying sound, and it's not. I wouldn't consider it to be a complete vocal sound. A certain amount of front mask resonance in our sounds, I believe, is required for a well-rounded sound. 5280 Coachings, just appreciating the office hours. Thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you for chiming in with that. Karina Chen's saying, me too. Kevin O'Brien at Striker. Karina Chen saying, happy birthday. Striker Kane at Jeff. One thing I really loved about the new Mesa de Voce practices, using a single vowel, is the ability to move the sound around in my mouth head to find the best or other places. Well done. Exactly. Experimentation is a good thing for us. It helps us find where things resonate and find out what works best. So yeah. Well done you. Striker Kane at Kevin, JC's Rating Ray at Striker, Isaac Devaneo, excuse me. Hello from Mexico. How can I make my mixed voice strong? Focus on your resonance. Focus on airflow, increasing as you ascend through the zona de passaggio. If you're not making a smooth transition, work from the top down to start. Yes, I'm entering the speed round to a certain extent here. But indeed, 1 second here. Okay. Kevin O'Brien at Striker, Striker at JC's Radiant Ray, Heidi at Striker, Bhavya saying thank you, you're very welcome, thank you. Striker at Heidi, Vaughn, I feel like I cannot find my vocal part. I can sing rather low for a soprano, but also high for an alto. My chorus teacher told me I was soprano, but now my voice has developed into a deeper sound. Well, dare I say mezzo-soprano? Because the difference between a mezzo-soprano, now there are some altos, beautiful, beautiful voices, these beautiful like low female voices that get down to like C3 and stuff are exquisite. But that's not you know, not all altos are like that. But you know, the average alto, E3, F3, you know, and low range for a mezzo, G3, and we're talking a major second here, not a huge difference. Now on the top end, where the primo and secondo passaggios are, now you start to see a more significant difference there. But you know, maybe just a mezzo. Striker at JC's Radiant Ray, JC's Radiant Ray at Striker, Mithan, thanks for everything, you're very welcome. JC's Radiant Ray, yes, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate also the thorough explanation. My pleasure. DJ Nakwasi, sorry I'm late. Well, welcome, better late than never. JC's Radiant Ray, I'm starting to play and sing, 2 thumbs up. I keep getting lost in the piano and distracted from the piano. Yeah, I can dig it. Ultimately, I feel that as vocalists, if we really want to play and sing at a high level of proficiency, the playing has to become as automatic as possible. We need to basically forget about it and keep it going while we're focusing on our voices. I think that there's a lot of room for individual differentiation in that regard. So you might be different than I, but for what it's worth, that to me is what I'm always shooting for when I'm working on things to play and sing simultaneously. JC's Radiant Ray at Striker at JC's Radiant Ray. At Striker at JC's Radiant Ray. Kevin O'Brien, I hope somebody tell me if I sing good. Well, join Sequencer. I think there's probably a good... you would get some constructive criticism. No one's going to tell you you're good or bad. And that's something I'm very, very adamant about. We want constructive criticism. Danielle, thank you. You're very welcome. DJ, please, when I'm singing with my colleagues, I pick my part easily, but when I'm singing alone, it becomes a problem. Well, you're obviously guiding off of other individuals instead of knowing the part internally, conceptualizing the pitches, and then articulating them in that capacity. So, tell you what. When you practice your parts, take the words out. So just pick an arbitrary vowel syllable, and like we, you know, and do your melodies, we, like that. My voice isn't even responding properly. Do your melodies that way, and then put the words back in. JC's Rating Ray at Kevin, Striker at Kevin, Jody, April, May, just saying, been linking to your teachings over the past 16 months, very grateful, and you are putting the videos out. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Sharing and spreading things out to your friends and fellow associates and singers is incredibly helpful for the channel, and I really, really appreciate it. I don't think about that very much, and I don't ask about it very much, but it's incredibly helpful, and I really appreciate it. Altug, thank you, Jeff, and sing. I agree. Sing, sing, sing. Striker at Kevin, Jody, April, May. I like the idea of wearing earplugs whilst playing piano, Striker. Thanks. Good, you guys are chatting. Striker at Kevin, Kevin at Striker. Heidi, thanks, Jeff. Hope everybody has a good week. Likewise. I hope you all do too. Striker at Jeff, Mel B, Melanie Brown, Spice Girls has the sexy low female range. Love. I know there's something amazing about that. I don't know why this is. I've been incredibly fortunate to work with, and I'm currently working with a couple female vocalists who have these like beautiful, incredibly low ranges, and it's just astounding. At Kevin, Striker, thanks, Jay. I read that one. Alejandra Ferriaya, you're very welcome. My pleasure. Great question. You know, that's the one thing. I mean, I use guys. I shouldn't say that generically, but all of you. The questions. I love the questions. Love the questions. It's so much fun and so exciting to be able to take them in this capacity. Okay, Kevin, yeah, on Sequencer, if you do a search for Sequencer, that's the name of it, and it's in the URL. I think you should be able to find it, and then I'll approve you, and we can go from there. JC's Radiant Ray, thank you for another great session. Each live event is so densely packed with information. No wonder so many people watch it after the event has ended. I know! Isn't that cool? Like, the live events afterwards get as many views as most of the videos. It's wonderful. Jody April May says thank you, and I say you are very, very welcome. Thank you for joining us. It takes me multiple views to unpack it all. That's awesome, and I am humbled. Thank you. Bruno, you are cool, Jeff. Your contributions are appreciated. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it makes me feel, I'm feeling the love. I am feeling love. This is wonderful. Thank you all. Striker Kane at Jeff, I was told for women they love high male singing. Maybe the same for men and female. I don't know. I could go on and on and on about the things about the individual fasces that I find just enticing and alluring and lovely. It's every fasce has its own amazing, unique beauties that each of the other fasces can only sort of emulate, but never truly own. Baritones can certainly sing as high as tenors, and yet the area of the tenor voice from about G3 to E4 and the flexibility and malleability of that is something to behold, I think. Much more so than the upper register of it, which in and of itself is gorgeous too, don't get me wrong, but that area for me is what has a unique thing. Contrarily, from that G3 down to the B flat to A2 of the baritone voice has a richness and lushness that tenors can only kind of dream of. Anyways, thank you all so much. Have a great week. Take really good care of your voices, enjoy singing, and hopefully we'll see you again here or in the channel or in the comments or on Twitter or whatever, or in Sequencer. Thanks, everybody. Bye.